Kevin Miller, joined by Senator Tom Cotton. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Kevin. Good morning to you.
The Supreme Court yesterday issuing a ruling on the Texas abortion case. They ruled 5-3. They said, no, this is not a good idea. You have different feelings about this.
Yeah, it was a very disappointing ruling yesterday, Kevin, both for the cause of life and for women's health. Parts of the Texas law challenge simply said that doctors and abortion clinics needed to have admitting privileges at hospitals in the vicinity, a very prudent measure for anyone who's ever gone any kind of out-of-hospital procedure, and they know that it involves some risks, or to crack down on the kind of gruesome practices we saw in the Kermit Gosnell case in Philadelphia. Unfortunately, though, a majority of the Supreme Court yet again bent the rules and applied really a different set of rules to abortion cases simply to protect their view of abortion on demand. This is why it's so important that we nominate and confirm conservative lawyers to trial, appellate, and the Supreme Court, because we want to make sure that we have judges who are applying the law and the Constitution as it's written, not inventing it.
Well, it was also a conservative justice who also said that this was not constitutional.
Well, I'm not sure I would call Anthony Kennedy a conservative, Kevin. He was certainly a Republican justice who was appointed, and that also reinforces the fact that for 50 or 60 years, Republican presidents have often appointed justices who have moved to the left, yet Democrats, whoever they appoint, have moved in lockstep. No matter their background, no matter the president who appointed them, no matter their jurisprudential approach, they always seem to agree on the outcome, which always seems to be the more liberal outcome.
Senator Tom Cotton, is this an issue that's going to come back around once there are 9 justices on the Supreme Court?
Well, yesterday's ruling was 5-3, so even if Justice Scalia had been alive, it still would have come out as it did. In the long term, the people who believe in the pro-life cause have moved public opinion pretty significantly over the last 30 or 40 years. That's one reason why you see laws like we did in Texas, laws that we've passed in Arkansas. It's incumbent upon all of us that we continue to try to persuade our fellow Americans, and that consensus that is emerging will ultimately be reflected in the courts through the people that we elect to the political branches.
Senator Tom Cotton, the Brits decided they're going to leave the EU. Do you feel that this is a good thing or not?
Well, I specifically did not state a position in the middle of the election, Kevin, because I didn't think it was my position or many other Americans' position to weigh in on what's a choice for the British people to make for themselves. I will say this, though. I'm sympathetic to their complaints about being ruled by an unaccountable and unelected bureaucracy in Brussels, much like we often face in Arkansas, being ruled by unelected and unaccountable bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. Now that they have made that choice, I think it's most incumbent upon us to preserve and to strengthen the special relationship we've always had with Great Britain. They remain our strongest NATO ally. They remain part of the so-called Five Eyes intelligence sharing partnership along with Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. We should move quickly to begin negotiations on a free trade agreement with Great Britain, whether that's a bilateral agreement or admitting them into NAFTA, or maybe turning the Five Eyes intelligence agreement into a broader Anglosphere trade zone. Whatever we do, we shouldn't do what President Obama threatened during the campaign, which is to put Great Britain in the back of the line.
Senator, other countries not happy with the EU. Do you see maybe a revision of the EU rules, or perhaps the whole organization coming back in the future in a different form?
I think the EU needs to look very seriously at the trajectory they've taken over the last 20 to 30 years, in which they've moved away from their original founding vision, something that Churchill himself advocated, of having a common market, lowering tariffs and other trade barriers, having a common currency and common defense. They've achieved the currency by and large. The common defense is provided through NATO. The common market, though, has become a common administrative and regulatory state, which they don't need to trade. They simply needed to lower barriers, and they've been doing that since the aftermath of World War II. So rather than having an unelected and unaccountable bureaucracy in Brussels, or having a single powerful leader like Angela Merkel in Berlin dictating immigration policy to every small country in Europe, they need to reassess what decisions truly need to be made at the European level, which shouldn't be very many. Most of those decisions should be made at national levels where peoples can hold their leaders accountable in elections.
Senator Tom Cotton, I've got to ask the question. Donald Trump saying you'd be a good choice for vice president. Has the Trump campaign reached out to you, and is it something you would consider if they did?
No, they have not. I am not being vetted for that position, and I have no reason to believe that I would be either. I've got my hands full representing Arkansas in the Senate and with my little son at home.
Thank you very much for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin. Have a good day.
Tom Cotton.